The space around Earth had been tense for 6 hours when something impossible happened. Every sensor in the solar system detected a massive faster-than-light signature dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Admiral Tae-Woo Choi expected to see another alien ship joining the fleet that was already watching Earth. Instead, his tactical display showed something that made him question his own eyes. The Indomitable had returned, but it was not the same ship that had left 3 months ago. The vessel that dropped out of hyperspace was 15 kilometers long, and glowing with energy patterns that human science could not explain. Where there had once been a simple heavy cruiser, there was now something that looked like it had been built by gods. Lieutenant So-Ra Park tried to scan the approaching ship and got readings that broke her equipment. The power output was beyond anything her sensors could measure. The hull seemed to be made from materials that absorbed and reflected energy at the same time. Most disturbing of all, the ship seemed to be bending space around itself as it moved. On the alien command ship's alarms began screaming warnings about unknown energy signatures. Commander Vex Tar of the Krell Empire felt his confidence drain away as he watched the human vessel approach. His sensors were telling him that this single ship was putting out more power than his entire 27-ship fleet combined. The other alien commanders were having similar reactions. Admiral Keith Moore of the Hegemony had seen precursor ruins before, but never anything that was actually working. The energy readings coming from the human ship matched theoretical projections for active precursor technology. Somehow these primitive humans had found and activated ancient systems that no other species had been able to use. Captain Jin Woo Han opened communications channels to both the human defense fleet and the alien armada at the same time. His message was broadcast on every frequency and translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. The casual confidence in his voice sent chills through every command center that heard it. He thanked the Galactic Council representatives for their visit to Earth, but suggested that in the future, they might want to make appointments before arriving in someone else's solar system. The politeness of his words made the underlying threat even more effective. Humanity was no longer asking permission to exist among the stars. Admiral Choi could not believe what his tactical sensors were showing him. The Indomitable was moving through space like it owned the void itself. Energy readings suggested the ship could accelerate to significant fractions of light speed without even using its faster-than-light drive. Whatever had happened to their vessel during its mission had transformed it into something beyond human engineering. Dr. Young-Mi Nam watched from her laboratory as streams of data poured in from every sensor pointed at the returning ship. The materials science alone would revolutionize human technology for the next 1,000 years. But more than that, the ship seemed to be alive in ways that made her question what constituted consciousness. On Earth, billions of people watched the news broadcasts as their single most advanced ship faced down an entire alien fleet. Children pressed their faces to windows looking up at stars they could not see but somehow felt watching them. Parents held families together while trying not to show their fear. Everyone understood that history was being made above their heads. President Hae-Jin Lee had opened all communication channels so that humanity could witness this moment together. She knew that whatever happened next would define Earth relationship with the rest of the galaxy for generations to come. The decision to let everyone watch was risky, but she believed people deserved to see their future being decided. The precursor artificial intelligence that now shared the Indomitable computer systems began broadcasting its own message to the alien fleet. It spoke in the native languages of every species present, including dialects that had not been used for centuries. The message was simple, but carried the weight of millions of years of accumulated knowledge. The Guardian introduced itself as a teacher and protector left behind by the precursors to guide younger species toward enlightenment. It explained that humanity had been chosen not because they were the strongest or smartest, but because they had the right kind of minds to use ancient technology responsibly. The aliens were welcome to observe, but any hostile action would be met with appropriate response. Lieutenant Commander Yun Hai Song monitored the ship-enhanced systems as they demonstrated capabilities that redefined what was possible. The Indomitable moved through space like it was swimming through water instead of vacuum. Gravity fields that should have torn the ship apart were simply ignored by shields that operated outside normal physics. Chief Engineer Kyung-Soo Bae watched power levels that would have destroyed any human-built vessel flow through conduits designed by minds that understood the deepest secrets of reality. The ship was no longer just a machine. It had become a living extension of human will, backed by technology that could reshape matter and energy at the fundamental level. The alien fleet found itself in a position none of the commanders had prepared for. They had come expecting to evaluate a primitive species and instead discovered that humanity had somehow leaped ahead of every known civilization in terms of raw capability. The question was no longer whether humans deserved to join the galactic community, but whether other species could keep up with human development. Commander Vextar sent private communications to his fellow fleet commanders asking for instructions from their home governments. The situation had gone far beyond what any of them were authorized to handle. They were facing technology that could potentially threaten entire star systems, and it was in the hands of a species they barely understood. Captain Han allowed the alien commanders exactly 1 hour to decide how they wanted to proceed. During that time, the Indomitable demonstrated some of its capabilities by performing impossible maneuvers that should have torn any vessel apart. The ship danced through space like it was showing off for an audience that was too shocked to appreciate the performance. The most impressive demonstration came when Han ordered the ship to relocate a small asteroid from the outer system. The Indomitable reached out with invisible forces and gently moved a rock the size of a mountain from beyond Pluto into orbit around Mars. The precision required for such a feat without disturbing anything else in the system was beyond the comprehension of every alien observer. Then, just to make the point absolutely clear, the ship moved the asteroid back to its original position with equal ease. The message was unmistakable. Earth now had the power to rearrange solar systems on a whim. Any species that wanted to threaten humanity would have to consider whether they were prepared for that level of retaliation. As the hour deadline approached, the alien fleet commanders realized they were facing a completely new situation in galactic politics. Humanity had gone from being potential subjects to being potential overlords in the space of a single day. The balance of power that had existed for thousands of years was about to change forever. The return of the Indomitable marked the end of human vulnerability and the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. A young species had found the keys to ultimate power, and the universe was about to learn whether they would use those keys wisely. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Earth Defense Command Center when the alarm started screaming. Lieutenant Sora Park nearly dropped her coffee as her console lit up with warnings she had never seen before. 27 massive objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system without any warning. They were big enough to show up on every sensor humanity had ever built. Captain Daeho Kim rushed to the main display screen and felt his heart skip a beat. The objects were ships, and they were enormous. Each one was at least 10 kilometers long, and shaped like nothing humans had ever imagined. They looked like giant metal whales covered in spikes and glowing with strange blue light. The biggest one was almost 20 kilometers from front to back. Sora tried to contact the ships, but got no response. She sent messages in every language Earth knew, including mathematics and music. The alien ships just hung there in space like they were waiting for something. Their silence was more frightening than any threat could have been. On Earth, President Hae-Jin Lee was pulled from her morning meeting and rushed to the underground command center. The news was spreading fast and panic was starting in the major cities. People were looking up at the sky even though the ships were too far away to see. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Were these visitors friendly, or had humanity finally met something that wanted to destroy them? Admiral Tae-Woo Choi studied the tactical display with growing concern. Earth had 12 frigates and 3 cruisers in the space fleet, against 27 alien ships, each bigger than anything humanity had ever built. They might as well throw rocks. The aliens had positioned themselves just outside the gravity well, where they could watch everything but stay out of range of Earth weapons. Dr. Young-Mi Nam was in her laboratory trying to understand what the sensors were telling her. The alien ships were putting out energy readings that made no sense. Some kind of power source was running inside each ship that was more efficient than anything physics said was possible. The metal they were made from seemed to absorb and reflect light at the same time. The strangest thing was that the ships seemed to be from different builders. 3 of them had smooth curves and bright colors. 5 others were all angles and sharp edges painted in dark red. The rest were different shapes and sizes, like a collection, rather than a single fleet. It looked like multiple alien species had come together for this visit to Earth. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Star Render, and watched the small blue planet through the main viewer. His species, the Krell, had been spacefaring for over 2,000 years. They had built an empire that covered 40 star systems, but even they had never seen anything quite like this little world. The humans had only developed faster than light travel 6 months ago. Their ships were primitive and their weapons were barely worth mentioning. Yet something about this species made the Galactic Council nervous enough to send a joint fleet to investigate. Vextar had read the reports about human behavior and found them disturbing. Humans were aggressive and unpredictable. They fought wars among themselves over ideas and resources. They had almost destroyed their own planet with pollution and weapons. Yet they also showed strange moments of cooperation and sacrifice that no other species understood. Some humans would die to save complete strangers, while others would kill for money. The Council had decided that humanity needed to be evaluated before they spread beyond their home system. If humans were too dangerous, they would be contained on Earth until they grew wiser. If they showed promise, they might be allowed to join the galactic community as junior members. The decision would be made based on how humanity reacted to this first contact. Captain Jinwoo Han was 3 months into the journey back from the Kepler system when the emergency message reached his ship. The Indomitable had been sent on humanity, first deep space exploration mission beyond the solar system. What they had found there would change everything, but Earth did not know that yet. The message from Admiral Choi was simple: alien fleet at Earth needs immediate assistance. The Indomitable was the most advanced ship in the human fleet, but Han knew it was still no match for what was waiting at home. Unless they used what they had learned in the ruins of the dead world they had been exploring. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hee-sung looked up from her science station with excitement in her eyes. The modifications they had made to the ship using the ancient technology were working better than anyone had hoped. The Indomitable was no longer just a human vessel. It had become something new and powerful, beyond imagination. Chief Engineer Kyung-Soo Bae ran final checks on the new systems they had installed. The power readings were incredible but stable. The ship computer had evolved into something that was almost alive. Most importantly, the weapons and shields they had discovered could protect Earth from any threat the galaxy might send. Back at Earth, the alien fleet continued to wait in silence. Hours passed with no communication and no movement. The ships just hung there like metal moons, watching and judging. Admiral Choi ordered the human fleet to take defensive positions, but everyone knew it was mostly for show. If the aliens wanted to attack, there was nothing humanity could do to stop them. President Lee addressed the world that evening. She told the people of Earth that contact had been made with alien civilizations. She asked for calm and patience while diplomats tried to establish communication. What she did not say was that the aliens had not responded to any attempt at contact. They seemed to be waiting for something or someone. Dr. Nam made a discovery that chilled her blood. The energy signatures from the alien ships suggested they had weapons that could crack planets in half. The smallest ship in their fleet had more firepower than everything humanity had ever built combined. Yet they had not fired a single shot or even powered up their weapon systems. As night fell across Earth, billions of people looked up at the stars and wondered if they were seeing their last peaceful evening. The alien visitors had brought no message of greeting or threat. Their silence said more than words ever could. Humanity was being measured and found wanting. The test had begun, and the results would determine the future of the entire species. The gathering storm was not in the skies above Earth, but in the hearts of those who watched and waited. Something was coming that would change everything. The now question was whether humanity would be ready when it arrived. 3 months earlier, the Indomitable had jumped into the Kepler system expecting to find empty space and dead worlds. Instead, Captain Jinwoo Han found himself staring at something that should not have existed. Floating in orbit around a cold, red star was a structure so massive it dwarfed entire planets. It was clearly artificial, but older than anything humanity had ever imagined. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hae-song ran every scan the ship had while trying to keep her excitement under control. The structure was made from materials that did not appear on any periodic table. Energy readings suggested it was still active after what looked like millions of years. Most incredible of all, it seemed to be some kind of library or computer system, the size of a small moon. The away team that beamed over to the structure found corridors and chambers filled with floating holographic displays. Everything was covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The artificial gravity worked perfectly and the air was clean enough to breathe. Someone or something had built this place to last forever and filled it with knowledge beyond human understanding. Dr. Sung-ho Park, the team's xenoarchaeologist, immediately recognized what they had found. These were ruins left by the precursors, the mysterious race that had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. Every spacefaring species had heard legends about precursor technology, but no one had ever found a working installation like this one. What made the discovery even more amazing was that the technology seemed to respond to human presence. When Yoon Hae touched one of the control panels, it immediately came to life. Symbols flowed across the display in patterns that somehow made sense to her human brain. It was like the machines had been waiting for someone exactly like her to arrive. Chief Engineer Kyung-soo Bae could not believe what his instruments were telling him. The precursor computers were downloading massive amounts of information directly into the ship systems. Technical specifications for weapons that could destroy stars, shield designs that could protect entire solar systems, most incredible of all, blueprints for devices that could enhance human consciousness itself. The precursors had left behind more than just technology. They had created a teaching system that could upgrade any species that found it. But there was a catch. The system only worked for species that had the right kind of neural patterns. Most galactic civilizations had found precursor ruins but could never activate them. Their brains were wired wrong for the technology. Humans were different. Captain Han discovered this when he accidentally activated a massive holographic display, just by thinking about it. The precursor technology read human thoughts and emotions in ways that seemed impossible. It was like the ancient builders had designed their system specifically for minds like those found on Earth. The ship engineer Kyung-soo spent days learning how to integrate precursor components into human technology. The process was dangerous. Because the ancient systems were so powerful, they could easily overload everything on the ship. But when the integration finally worked, the results were beyond anything humanity had dreamed possible. The indomitable weapon systems were enhanced with precursor beam arrays that could cut through any known material. The shields were upgraded, with barrier generators that could absorb the energy of exploding stars. Most importantly, the ship computer was merged with a precursor artificial intelligence that had been waiting eons for someone to wake it up. Commander Yi-Jun Lee was the ship tactical officer and the first to test the new weapon systems. A single shot from the enhanced beam arrays completely vaporized an asteroid the size of a city. The power readings were so high they broke every measuring device on the ship. They now had weapons that could crack planets if they needed to. The precursor artificial intelligence that joined with the ship computer called itself the Guardian. It explained that its creators had built these teaching stations throughout the galaxy before they transcended to a higher level of existence. The Guardian had been waiting millions of years for a species with the right mental patterns to find it. Humans were apparently the first species the Guardian had encountered that could properly interface with precursor technology. Other races were too logical or too emotional or too rigid in their thinking. Human minds had just the right combination of creativity and adaptability to make the ancient systems work at full capacity. The most incredible discovery came when Dr. Min-soo Kim, the ship medical officer, tried to use a precursor healing device. The technology did not just repair injuries. It enhanced human capabilities in ways that seemed like magic. Reaction times became faster, thinking became clearer, and physical strength increased dramatically. Captain Han realized they had found something that would change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. If humans were the only species that could use precursor technology, then Earth had just become the most important world in known space. Every other civilization would want access to these capabilities, but the Guardian warned them about the dangers of this knowledge. Other species had gone to war over much smaller precursor discoveries. If the galactic powers learned that humans could activate the ancient technology, there would be attempts to conquer Earth or destroy humanity to prevent them from becoming too powerful. The away team spent weeks learning everything they could from the precursor installation. They downloaded technical manuals that would take human scientists decades to fully understand. They copied construction blueprints for devices that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Most importantly, they learned about other precursor sites hidden throughout the galaxy. When the emergency message from Earth finally reached them, Captain Han made the decision to return home immediately. The ship had been completely transformed by precursor technology, but they had kept the changes hidden from Earth Command. No one back home knew that humanity's most advanced ship had just become something that could challenge entire alien fleets. The jump back to Earth would take 3 days, even with their enhanced faster-than-light drive. During the trip, the crew practiced with their new capabilities and tried to understand what they had become. The Indomitable was no longer just a human vessel. It was a hybrid of two civilizations separated by millions of years. Engineer Kyung-soo ran constant checks on the precursor systems to make sure they were stable. The power output was incredible, but controlled. The ship could now move faster than anything else in the galaxy, and its weapons could destroy targets the size of moons. They were bringing hope back to Earth in the form of technology beyond imagination. As they prepared to drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, Captain Han opened a channel to address his crew. He told them they were no longer just explorers or soldiers. They had become the guardians of humanity and possibly the protectors of all peaceful life in the galaxy. The secrets they had discovered in the deep would soon be revealed to friend and enemy alike. The question was whether humanity was ready for the responsibility that came with godlike power. The hour that Captain Jin Woo Han had given the alien fleet was almost over when Admiral Keth Moore of the Hegemony made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. He could not accept that a primitive human vessel could possibly be as powerful as the sensor readings suggested. Pride and thousands of years of technological superiority demanded that he test these claims with force. The Hegemony battlecruiser Voidhammer was the most advanced warship in Keth Moore fleet. Its plasma cannon could punch through any known armor, and had been used to crack fortified moons during the Outer Rim Wars. Keth Moore ordered his weapons officer to fire a warning shot across the bow of the human ship. The blast that erupted from his main gun carried enough energy to vaporize a small city. Captain Han watched the incoming plasma bolt on his tactical display with something approaching amusement. The shot was impressive by normal standards, but barely registered as a threat to systems enhanced with precursor technology. He did not even bother to change course or raise additional shields. The Indomitable simply absorbed the attack like a sponge soaking up water. The plasma bolt struck the human ship shields and vanished completely. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no sign that anything had happened at all. The energy that could have destroyed a mountain simply ceased to exist as if it had never been fired. Admiral Keth Moore stared at his tactical display in disbelief as his most powerful weapon produced absolutely no effect. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hai Song monitored the shield systems and reported that they had absorbed less than 1% of their maximum capacity. The attack that should have been devastating was barely noticeable to technology designed by beings who had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. She almost felt sorry for the aliens who had no idea what they were really facing. Captain Han opened a communication channel to the Hegemony ship and politely asked if they were finished with their demonstration. His tone was so casual that it made the complete failure of their attack even more humiliating. Then he added that if they were done playing with weapons, perhaps they could discuss the situation like civilized beings. The response from Admiral Keth Moore was predictably aggressive. He ordered 2 more ships to join the attack, believing that concentrated fire might succeed where a single shot had failed. The Hegemony vessels Bone Crusher and Starkiller moved into formation and prepared to unleash everything they had at the human ship. What happened next became legendary throughout the galaxy and was recorded by dozens of different sensor arrays. The 3 Hegemony ships opened fire simultaneously with every weapon they possessed. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, particle beams, and gravity torpedoes all struck the Indomitable at the same moment. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize an entire planet. The human ship simply sat there and took the punishment without moving or reacting in any visible way. The bombardment continued for 30 seconds as the alien vessels poured everything they had into their target. When the weapons finally stopped firing, the space around the Indomitable was filled with dissipating energy clouds, but the ship itself was completely undamaged. Chief Engineer Kyung-Soo Bae reported that the shield systems had absorbed approximately 3% of their maximum capacity. The attack that could have destroyed worlds was still barely noticeable to precursor defensive technology. More importantly, the shields had actually grown stronger by converting the incoming energy into additional protective power. Captain Han's response was swift and completely unexpected. Instead of returning fire with weapons that could have instantly destroyed the attacking ships, he simply reached out with the Indomitable enhanced systems and turned off their power. 3 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy went dark, in an instant like someone had flipped a switch. The hegemony vessels found themselves floating helplessly in space with every system offline. Life support, gravity, artificial atmosphere, and even emergency lighting had been deactivated simultaneously. The crews were not harmed, but they were completely helpless and totally dependent on the mercy of the humans they had just attacked. Admiral Taewoo Choi watched from the Earth Defense Station and felt his understanding of warfare change forever. The human ship had not destroyed its attackers or even damaged them. Instead, it had simply reached into their vessels and turned them off like shutting down a computer. The level of technological control required for such precision was beyond anything he had imagined possible. Commander Vextar of the Krell Empire felt ice form in his veins as he realized what he had just witnessed. The humans had not only defended against the most powerful attack the galaxy could produce, they had responded with such surgical precision that they could disable enemy ships without harming a single crew member. It was godlike power used with terrifying restraint. The other alien commanders were reaching the same conclusion. If the humans could turn off their ships at will, then every vessel in the fleet was effectively at their mercy. Traditional concepts of military power and technological advantage had just become meaningless. The species they had come to evaluate was now in complete control of the situation. Dr. Young Mi-nam recorded everything from her laboratory on Earth and tried to understand what she was seeing. The ability to reach into another ship's systems and manipulate them remotely suggested technology that operated on principles completely outside human science. The precursors had apparently mastered control over matter and energy at levels that made conventional physics look primitive. President Hee Jin-lee addressed the world as billions of people watched their single ship face down an entire alien fleet and win without firing a shot. She explained that humanity had discovered ancient technology that would change everything about their place in the galaxy. Earth was no longer a helpless world waiting to be conquered or protected. They had become protectors themselves. Captain Han's next communication was directed at the disabled ships. He offered to restore their power and provide safe passage out of the solar system, along with complete medical scans to ensure that no crew member had been harmed by the temporary shutdown. The generosity of the offer was almost as shocking as the demonstration of power that preceded it. The crews of the disabled vessels found their ships coming back to life exactly as they had been before the shutdown. Every system functioned perfectly, and detailed medical scans confirmed that no one had suffered even minor injuries during the blackout. The humans had reached into their vessels, manipulated the most complex technology in the galaxy, and then restored everything without causing any harm. The message was clear to every alien commander in the fleet. Humanity now possessed the ability to disable any ship they chose while ensuring the safety of its crew. They could have easily destroyed the attacking vessels and everyone aboard them, but had chosen mercy over vengeance. The demonstration of power was matched by an equally impressive demonstration of restraint. Admiral Keth Moore found himself in the humiliating position of having to thank the humans for sparing his ships and crews. His attack had failed completely, while their response had been measured and proportionate. The species he had tried to intimidate had shown themselves to be both more powerful and more civilized than his own. The remaining alien fleet was now faced with a choice that would determine the future of galactic politics. They could continue to test human capabilities and risk further humiliation, or they could accept the new reality and try to establish diplomatic relations with a species that had suddenly become the most powerful force in known space. As reports of the encounter spread throughout the galaxy, every major civilization would have to reconsider their policies toward Earth. Humanity had passed their test not by demonstrating superior firepower, but by showing that they possessed ultimate power and the wisdom to use it responsibly. The demonstration was over and the real negotiations were about to begin. The aftermath of the failed hegemony attack should have been the end of hostilities, but some alien commanders could not accept what they had witnessed. 3 ships from different species broke formation and moved toward the Indomitable with weapons powered and shields raised. Pride and disbelief drove them to test whether the human demonstration had been real or some kind of elaborate deception. Commander Zarvel of the consortium destroyer Swift Death had built his reputation on never backing down from any enemy. His ship was fast and heavily armed with experimental weapons that his species had developed in secret. He refused to believe that humans could have advanced so far beyond every other galactic civilization in just a few months. Captain Morton of the Alliance heavy cruiser Iron Will commanded one of the most successful raider vessels in the outer systems. His crew had faced down entire fleets and survived by being faster and more ruthless than their enemies. The idea that a single human ship could threaten his vessel was an insult he would not tolerate. The 3rd ship was the independent mercenary vessel Blood Moon, commanded by Captain Hargoth, who had never lost a battle in 20 years of warfare. His ship carried weapons purchased from a dozen different civilizations, and his crew was trained to fight against overwhelming odds. He saw the human display as a challenge to his reputation. The 3 ships approached the Indomitable from different angles, hoping to overwhelm its defenses with coordinated attacks from multiple vectors. Their plan was simple and brutal. Strike fast with everything they had and destroy the human ship before it could respond. They had no intention of showing the mercy that humanity had demonstrated. Captain Jin Wuhan watched the approaching vessels on his tactical display and felt genuine sadness at what was about to happen. These alien commanders had seen his demonstration of power and his restraint in dealing with the previous attackers, yet they were still choosing violence over wisdom. Some lessons could only be learned through consequences. Lieutenant Commander Yun Hai Song monitored the approaching ships and noted their tactical formations. The aliens were using standard attack patterns that might have been effective against conventional vessels. Against precursor-enhanced technology, their strategies were not just inadequate, they were pitifully outdated. The Guardian artificial intelligence that shared the ship computer systems offered multiple response options to Captain Han. It could destroy the attacking vessels instantly or disable them like the previous ships. It could even capture them intact with their crews unharmed. The choice of response would send a message to the entire galaxy about human intentions. Captain Han chose a middle path that would demonstrate both power and mercy while making the consequences of aggression absolutely clear. As the 3 ships closed to attack range, he gave them one final warning: stand down immediately and withdraw, or face the full consequences of their actions. The transmission was sent on open channels, so every ship in the fleet could hear it. Commander Zarvel ignored the warning and opened fire with every weapon his ship possessed. Plasma cannons and missile launchers sent streams of destruction toward the human vessel. At the same moment, Captain Morton and Captain Hargoth launched their own attacks from different angles. The combined firepower should have been enough to seriously damage any ship in space. The Indomitable did not even bother to raise additional shields. The incoming weapons fire struck the hull and simply vanished as if it had never existed. But this time, Captain Han's response was different from his previous demonstrations. Instead of merely absorbing the attack, he decided to show the aliens what real power looked like. The human ship reached out with invisible forces and gently but irresistibly took control of all 3 attacking vessels. The alien ships found themselves frozen in space, unable to move or maneuver, despite having full power to their engines. Their weapons stopped firing, not because they were damaged, but because the Indomitable was simply preventing them from working. "Chief, Engineer Kyung-soo monitored the power systems as they effortlessly controlled 3 enemy ships simultaneously. The energy expenditure was so minimal that it barely registered on his instruments. Precursor technology made it possible to manipulate matter and energy on scales that conventional science could not explain. The crews of the captured ships tried desperately to regain control of their vessels, but nothing they did made any difference. Their computers were still functional, their engines were still running, and their weapons were still powered. But the ships would only do what the Indomitable allowed them to do. They had become prisoners in their own vessels. Captain Han opened communications to the 3 captured ships and explained their situation with calm professionalism. Their vessels were now under human control and would remain so until their commanders acknowledged the reality of the situation. No one would be harmed, but they would not be released until they demonstrated proper respect for diplomatic protocol. Commander Zarvel tried to activate his ship's self-destruct system rather than surrender to humans, but found that even that option had been denied to him. Every control on his bridge responded normally, but nothing actually happened when he tried to damage his own vessel. The humans had somehow taken control of his ship more completely than he controlled it himself. Admiral Tae Woo Choi watched from the Earth Defense Station as 3 enemy vessels were captured without a single shot being fired by human forces. The level of technological superiority being demonstrated was beyond anything in recorded galactic history. Humanity had become something that other species could not fight, resist, or even comprehend. The rest of the alien fleet observed the capture with growing unease. The humans were not just more powerful than anyone had imagined, they were operating with technology that made conventional warfare obsolete. Ships' weapons and shields meant nothing when your enemy could simply take control of your vessel and make it do whatever they wanted. Dr. Youngmi Nam studied the sensor readings and tried to understand how the Indomitable was accomplishing these impossible feats. The ship seemed to be manipulating fundamental forces that human science had not even discovered yet. The precursors had apparently learned to control matter and energy at the quantum level. President Hae-jin Lee addressed the world again as news of the second demonstration spread across Earth. She explained that humanity now possessed the ability to protect not just themselves but any peaceful species that might need their help. The age of human vulnerability was over, and a new era of responsibility had begun. The 3 captured ships remained frozen in space as their commanders struggled to accept their defeat. Hours passed as they tried every trick they knew to regain control of their vessels, but nothing worked. The humans held them as easily as a parent might hold a struggling child. Captain Han finally released the captured ships after their commanders formally apologized for their unprovoked attacks and acknowledged Earth's sovereignty over the solar system. The vessels were returned to full functionality without any damage or permanent modifications. Once again, humanity had demonstrated both overwhelming power and surprising restraint. The price of arrogance had been humiliation rather than destruction, but the lesson was clear to every observer. Humanity would defend itself against any threat, but would not seek revenge against those who chose aggression over diplomacy. The demonstration of mercy was as impressive as the display of power. As the 3 ships rejoined their formation, the alien fleet commanders began to realize that they were dealing with a species unlike any other in galactic history. Humans had found ultimate power and were using it with wisdom that older civilizations had never achieved. The balance of galactic politics was about to change forever. The alien fleet chose wisdom over pride. Commander Vextar formally requested permission to establish diplomatic relations with Earth, effectively acknowledging humanity as equals in the galactic community. But Captain Han's response surprised everyone. He suggested they think of humans as older brothers rather than equals, given their newfound access to precursor knowledge. President Lee addressed not just Earth but the entire galaxy through the alien fleet's communication systems. She announced humanity's intention to share precursor technology with peaceful species, while serving as protectors for younger civilizations still developing among the stars. The galaxy had a new guardian, and it wore a human face. Dr. Nam found herself appointed as Earth's first xenological ambassador, tasked with helping other species understand and adapt to the new reality. Meanwhile, Captain Han and the Indomitable became humanity's roving ambassadors, visiting other worlds and establishing the foundations of what would become known as the Human Protectorate. The story that began with an alien armada threatening Earth ended with humanity taking responsibility for the safety and growth of countless worlds. The precursor technology hadn't just given them power, it had given them purpose. As the alien fleet departed with the disabled vessels restored and their crews unharmed, the galaxy began to whisper about the young species that had found the keys to the universe and chose to use them wisely. Humanity had passed its first test as a galactic power not through conquest or destruction, but through strength tempered with mercy. The visitors who had come to judge Earth left knowing they had witnessed the birth of something unprecedented, a species with the power of gods and the wisdom to use it well.